This is a yard sale find, and it is, from my research, a mid-50s record number 4. And I got it on a towel just so I can try to keep you in frame. No other reason. But it's been used. And I bought this to be a birthday present for my son. So we got to fix it up a little bit and do a little bit of tuning on it. And we'll go into a little bit of other things and digressions as we go along. Now this is my own number 4. And like I said, this one was dated mid-50s, and this one is about a 1936, I believe. So they look pretty much the same. It's Bailey pattern. So, one of the differences that come at first glance, get up here, you can see in here, get some light in there, the adjuster in here has a little piece of metal around it. See if I can get some good light in there. And this one, the frog adjuster, that's better, you can see, has it cast right in, and then the bolt has like a washer pretty much right on it. And the other obvious difference the bolt for the cap iron and the castings. You see that in the 30s the casting technology wasn't as great. Full casting. And this one has voids in it. And what helped me date this one was right here there is a Q that is cast into it. So that's a couple of the differences. Put mine together and we'll get it out of the way because we're going to work on this guy. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the frog. There are other dating indications on these too, for instance how the stamping is on how the lever is marked. So the last thing we're going to do is sharpen the blade because we don't want to be working on something with a sharp blade right away. So we're going to give this a little bit of a clean up. And for that, an old toothbrush. Let me just get the dry stuff out of there first. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom of the frog. And here you can see that frog adjusting to open and close the mouth. Now, one thing that is worth checking on these, how does the frog sit. So I'm going to take just a little bit of grease. Put a little dab of grease on the surfaces that mate. The frog we want stable. We don't want vibration in here. So we'll get a little bit of grease in there. And we'll put it right back down on its castings. And we'll move it a little bit. And take it off. You can see where it's hitting and not hitting. Got a bit heavy on the grease on one side there. And we'll just slide it on there. You can see where the contact points are, whether it's flat or not. Now there's cutaway right here, so everything seems to be fairly tight there for fit. And we'll take the grease off there, because I'm pretty happy with that. And we're going to try to make this a user, not a showpiece. But we do want it nice and clean. While we're at it, left-hand thread, we'll take that off because we're going to give this a nice cleaning. Like I said, user spec, not a showpiece. Now, this is a machined area too, and it has to be flat. And that's what we'll be checking next. Well, before we get started, I guess we'll put in a little bit of design theory. Basically, what a plane is a chisel in a frame with a sole on it. So if we look at the bottom of a plane, and we'll exaggerate it quite a bit here, that's the sole of a plane looking at it from the side. What we have is at 45 degrees, we have, and I'm really going to exaggerate this, a blade sticking down that's sharpened so that the back doesn't interfere and go up. And then we'd have a mouth. So if you look at that picture right now, you can see a design flaw right away in that if you take a piece of board and you're cutting it in, and you'll be cutting this way on a bevel down plane, it's the direction of travel. Your piece of board will slide over here, your chip will come up here, and then your board would continue on like that. So the back of the plane really doesn't support it at all in this scenario. What happens is the back very edge of the plane tilts down to meet. So actually you're not really getting ideally engineered. What you're getting is that for your three contact areas. Now if you're going to develop a plane and engineer it, you would have your blade come down, and it would be perfectly in line with the sole. And then this sole, the front, or the toe of the plane, would be up here. You understand that? zoom you in a little bit. That would be a better engineered plane. Now, the metal plane that we have today, and since the Bailey pattern, is much more accurate than any of the wood planes that we've ever had. And when we had wooden planes, they worked beautifully and they made some real beautiful things with wooden planes. So, how accurate does a wooden plane or a metal plane have to be to do its job? And the answer is, that depends how far you want to go with it. It doesn't really have to be a super within a thousandths accuracy to get the job that you want done on it. So that being said, I'm going to do a few things on this. And I got some 400 grit, wet dry paper, and it is on a granite tile that I picked up from the local store. Now some people will take the lever off of it to do it, and if you want to, that's fine. All I'm doing is checking it here. So we're going to just give it a little bit there. And work it around. And just get a look at the contact pattern. And it might be hard to see, but there is a little bit of a low spot here, and this area is. There's very minor variances in it. So just give it a little bit more. And the machining marks go this way on it. So if we go the opposite way, should give us a pretty good indication of what's flat and what's not. And really, I don't see any problem with that. It seems to be making contact in lots of areas. Again, if you have, you can do those machine surfaces and get those cleaned up if you need them. Same way. And if you have to start off with a higher grit, then you start off with a higher grit. Or a lower grit, I should say. You can start off at a 120 if you want, if you really need to. But you see, if you just rub that on there, it doesn't take long for you to find out where the contact area is. And there, you can see that there's a low spot there, which there's a void in anyway, so it doesn't matter. But the meeting surfaces are pretty much what we want. And we'll take a little piece of 400 grit and some WD-40. And we'll just clean the rust off of that. I'm not doing it to be pretty, but you don't want it all full of crap either. Rusty tools are not the way to go. So I'm calling that complete for the frog. And what I'll do is I'll take furniture wax that I have melted down and thinned out with 3-in-1 oil and made a soft wax out of it, and it is a good rust preventative. And I keep the rag in there, and we'll just give everything a wipe down and clean off there. Make sure we get it on the machined areas. I'm going to call that perfectly adequate for a frog. Like I said, before the invention of the metal plane, people made beautiful furniture with wooden ones, and they aren't going to be near as accurate as these. Although I guess that would depend on the skill of the maker. There's our frog. We'll put our wax away, and we'll go on to the next step. So we got the body of the plane, and we'll take the knob and the tote off. And we'll get a rag and our brush and clean all this up a little bit. And don't be afraid to give it a spritz with some WD-40. It works as a good cleaner for metal. Not bad for a plane that's 60 years old. And I'm not going to get all surgical with it or anything. Just make it nice. There we go. Now the finish on the knob and the tote, or handles if you want to call them, it doesn't look too bad. It's in pretty good shape. But it is a film finish. I prefer just no lacquer or anything on there. I prefer myself just linseed oil. Seems more friendly to the hand. You can feel the wood, but I think we're going to be fine with these. They're in good shape. And just because everybody likes things that are shiny when they're brass, got a little bit of rubbing compound. How's that? There are little details where pretty is worth it. And that didn't take very long at all. Of course, we'll give those the same little coat of wax on there too. Just to keep the rust at bay. So we'll start putting things back together a little bit. get that on there. Now you can take a file and check your squareness here too of your mouth. And I don't see too much out on that at all. So I'm not going to touch it on this one. We'll get our screw for adjusting the frog in there. And we'll get our frog put down. And again, we'll give everything a little bit of a wipe off as we put it all back together. And we're going to try to adjust our frog so it's square and level with the bevel on there. We'll just get that just a touch tighter, just so it holds it on there. And we can just take a screwdriver and I can feel it hitting just a little bit there. We'll just tighten it up a touch. Now I can feel there's no bump there. And this will probably get moved again yet. This is just to get it assembled for the next step. Okay. Put the handle on. And the knob. A little bit of wax on that too. And they're in there nice and sturdy, and that's in there nice and sturdy. The adjustment knob. I guess that's next on the list because it's got to go on next. And of course, being brass, what do we do with it? Make it pretty. Perhaps within the realm of overkill here, but put some metal polish on it too. What the heck? Not too bad. Not too bad at all. So we'll get that put on. And you got to remember that's a left-hand thread. So bring this up. And this is the depth adjuster, so I'll just get that, make sure the fork goes in there. And the fork is nice and tight on this one. And we'll put it in a lot. Again with the wax. Everything seems to be moving pretty nicely on this one. It's in pretty good shape. So we haven't looked at our blade yet. And we're not going to right yet. We're going to pop it in there. We're going to make sure that the depth adjuster gets into this slot on the cap iron. And make sure our lateral adjuster is engaged. And, well, we're here. Give that a little bit of a cleanup. Make sure the threads are nice and cleaned. Install that a few turns. Put our cap on. This one's in really good shape. I've got a lot of travel on that one too. Okay. So our blade is definitely not sticking out of the bottom. Got it up as high as it'll come. So on to the next step. So we're going to look at the sole of this thing. And we've got all assembled, so everything's the right same tension. Now, the important part of the sole is the toe, around the mouth, the heel, and the edges. The rest of it can be all out of whack. It can be hollow in here it can be hollow, and in here it can be hollow. And it's not going to make a difference. Now there's also a lot of folks that go on about, oh, the squares have to be square. They have to be, and although this one looks pretty square, it's not an important thing. But what if you use it in a shooting board? Well, what if you use it in a shooting board? You have a lateral adjustment. You want it to be square to the blade, not to the body. So if your blade can be moved laterally, you're changing the amount of square it is right there. See? And it moves quite a bit. But we want a fairly flat sole. So back to the 400 grit and WD-40. And this is a check. It may be okay, it may not be. Might have to go a little coarser. And just like we're using it. Now, You can see we have contact there. We have contact at the back of the mouth. We have contact in here. So we're not very far out. Got lucky with this one. And you can see now it's cleaning there. Both sides of the mouth, a little bit more there. That's very clean. We're almost done. This was an easy one. You can spend hours and hours and hours on these. Ask me how I know that. My number 7 needed a lot of work, and that's a big plane. So we'll get this flattened out a bit and then we'll bring you back. So I have decided to go back to a 220 grit. A little rougher. That's just because the sides on the 400, they need a little bit of cleaning up. And that's just a make pretty thing, not a function thing. But if I'm going to 220, I might as well get the sole to 220 also. And that's cleaning up very nicely. The sole is. And that's cleaning it up a bit better. And just work that back and forth a few times. Now, one thing we want to do is we want to break this edge a little bit. So bring this up on about a 45. On that way about. And just get that a bit of a working off there. And we'll keep going. I run out of spray glue for my granite plate. But the rest of it is mostly just cleaning, so 400 grit with a good flat block. You want to get all these edges around the sole too. And get all these, a little bit of a chamfer on them. And we'll keep going and cleaning it up. Getting into the realm of over-restored for me. More than what's required. But, like I said, it's the present. So, .400 grit is as high as I went. And again, wax and oil treatment. And on to sharpening. So we're going to do our cap iron and our iron. Take a little bit of 400 grit and clean a few things up as we're going to. Cap iron bolt has a little bit of rust on it. Clean that up a bit. And where we have some writing on there and some rust and corrosion, we'll make it so we can see it. This is the iron, and this one is marked tungsten vanadium steel made in England. I'll just clean some of the rust off of that. I don't know if I can get this to show up here. And we'll do the same thing with our cap iron. And it has the typical sharpen at 25 degrees. Correct angle for grinding, 25 degrees. Which is personal preference. I do it at 25 degrees for a smoother. I do everything at 25 degrees except for my jack plane, which I do at 30. But anywhere between 25 and 30 is generally acceptable. So I've got a Veritas Mark II, and I've got it set for 25 degrees. And this is a 2-inch wide blade. There's a little line on there that tells me it's 2 inches. And put this right up at the top. There's a little mark there. So there's no micro bevel yet. We're just going to work on the primary bevel. I'll just get this slid in here. I'll tighten that up. That's all we need that part for. This is an old hardware store oil stone. I have no idea what the grits are, but for me, it works for roughing things out when I get them. Things that I've never had before. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do a bit on the back here. Little nails aren't holding very well. There we go. And this is the critical part. And this has got a coarse side and a medium side, and I'm running on the medium side right now. And it seems to be doing alright. I don't mind working a little bit slower with a higher grit than better than going too far. And I'm just roughing it out right now. I'm using the light here to and for honing oil I am using chainsaw bar oil. I'm just checking the scratch pattern there and seeing how it is, and it looks pretty even. So, on to the bevel. Oh damn, I put that thing in upside down. Could have saved myself a whole bunch of work by doing it this way. Yeah, that's looking okay. Alright, let's get this set up again. Two inches. Stick that in there. The bevel the right way this time. And we're set at 25 degrees. So we're just roughing it out. And it's going to take a little bit of work. It's getting sharp. The angles are starting to meet. So I'm going to take a file and I'm going to round these corners just a bit. Probably easier this way. I got my water stone, been soaking here for a while, and it's a 1000 4000, 1000 on this side and 4000 on that side. So we'll start on the 1000 side. You don't have to do much of the back, but I like getting enough on there so I got a good registration on the stone, and that I am making it flat. And some people do the ruler trick where they put a machinist ruler on it. A bit more water. We'll start on the bevel. I have a feeling there's a micro bevel on there, and I can still see some chips on it. I'm going to use my good eyes. Yeah, we still have a few little dings in there. We're going to have to go back to the oil stone again and get that out of there. Which is okay. I don't think the coarse side cuts all that well on here, but we'll give it a shot. So you didn't miss too much. I had to go back and into the coarser stones again. I kept finding nicks in it. So now I got the back polished up pretty nice. And I'm still working on the primary bevel. And we're going to give that a polish. Up to the 4000 grit now. For about the third time. I got here a couple other times, and I don't know, the guy must have been planing nails at one point, because there was such a nick in there and it just wouldn't appear until I started polishing it out. I think I got it out now. Okay, I think we're close enough. You can see it shining like a mirror now. So we're going to take and turn that 90 degrees, which will give us a 1 degree micro bevel. Turns out the part of the machine that should be the best was the worst. The blade is being sharp is the most important, and it took the worst of the longest time to get fixed. And we got a beautiful little micro bevel on there. I don't know if it's going to show up on there. I don't think you're going to be able to see it. And we got just the tiniest bit of a burr on there. I've got an old piece of leather belt that I salvaged and some rubbing compound. This is actually for fiberglass boats. Use whatever you can find. And obviously my piece of leather, my experiment, isn't as wide as it should be. That puts a final little polish on it. Do I have to do it? Not hugely hairy at the best of times, but there you go. Not that I want to use it for shaving or anything, but I guess everybody else does it, so. We got a sharp blade. Now the next thing is our end cap. Or cap iron, whatever you want to call it. Now that sits on the blade like that, and then gets compressed. So if I exaggerate it, it actually goes on this side. So if I exaggerate that compression from screwing it together, you don't want it in a relaxed position sitting like that. Can you see that? Because when you compress it, the front will open up like this. Get a better angle. So you don't want it sitting like that in a relaxed state, because when you compress it, it'll open up like that and you'll get a spot for chips to go in. So we want to do this edge here, and we want to do it at a bit of an angle. So I've got you at a kind of a low angle. So we don't want to sharpen that way. We want to drop this end down a little bit and sharpen it that way. And we want to get a really nice edge. This front edge is really nice. That's what we're looking for. And actually that looks like it might have been done at too high of a angle at one time. And I'm just going to get that leading edge. And I'm going to roll that as I pull it along the stone. Just to see what that leading edge gives me. I want good contact, and that edge looks pretty good now. Alright, we'll put it back together. But before we do that, we'll give this front edge right here a little bit more of a stropping and stropping. So we spent all kinds of time getting that nice and sharp, so we don't want to run that over this sharpened edge. So put it on sideways, slide it, then turn it, and then we'll bring it up. Let me get just a touch of tension on there. And I'm going to set this pretty fine. Sixteenth or 32nd or so. Because it is a smoothing plane. Now if you're using it for a general purpose plane, you might want to leave it a little bit bigger. That's not too bad there. Yeah, about a 32nd or so. Okay, this is still all the way to the top. Set that in. Make sure it's into the lateral adjustment. And we'll roll it out a bit. Let's see if I can make it so you can see it and I can see it too. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I can see this edge of the blade coming up a little bit higher than the other. So I'll push the lateral adjustment over that way. And that looks pretty dang even to me. So we'll back the blade back out. And we're going to see how it planes. So if I guess we're going to test it, we might as well really test it. I got a really wonky piece of ash here. And it's pretty rough. We'll make sure we're right back. And we'll start to slowly advance the blade. A bit too far. Bit out. I'm getting a nice thin shaving off of it. Pretty much full width. Just shows you how porous ash is. I'll put a little bit of a paraffin wax assistant on the bottom. Help it glide a bit better. Seems to be doing just fine. Now that board I don't know if the light will catch it just right in here or not. You can see the light reflecting off of it. I think that works just fine. And just for fun, got a piece of pine here, and we'll try that too. Now, without changing a thing, you can see the difference between a pine shaving and a ash. I haven't changed anything on the plane. I was thinking I was going to have to close the mouth up a little bit on it. But I think we're doing all right. Oh, what do they do? The other test that everybody says they got to do. Can you read through the shaving? And yes, you can. And I don't know why that's important, because what's really important is that. It's not what you're taking off that's important. It's what you're leaving behind as for a surface. Now, you can see the light reflecting off of that. There's no tracks on it. So, I think I'm going to call this a success. Alrighty. Happy birthday, Josiah.